Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at Fons & Porter. In this Sew Easy tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make stars. We have a couple here on the Sewing Center, and these are the stars that are used in the Stars and Bars table runner behind me. And there are actually two different size stars, but we'll work with a larger one so it's a little easier for you to see. And this is kind of a different kind of technique. It's using a freezer paper base, and we're going to be making two at a time. So you see here the two in reverse. So let's work on creating those. We're going to start with freezer paper, which is a dry paper on one side and a waxy back on the other. We're going to be taking and drawing a star, and this is something that you can either repeat the star shape that you like, or you can make them all different as you work along. Our instructions say to go approximately halfway across the top, start at one point, and stay within 1 inch or so of the outer edge at the bottom. So we've got the two lines like you learned in kindergarten to draw stars. Then we're coming out and across this way, and if you want to make your star a little more funky, it can be at an odd angle or you can go fairly flat. And the last side across the block. That is the beginning of our star. What we want to do, then you can use the freezer paper over and over a few times until the waxiness of it kind of goes away, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. But what we need to do is remove two lines. We've drawn all this, but we want to get the shape. We need to take out these two lines in our star. So we remove those so that this large triangle inside here is all one piece. Once we get it to that point, now we need to number. And you will need to go according to the instructions in our Sew Easy, but this is how it goes. We're numbering the top portion of the star, starting at the center. This whole section is section A, A1, 2, and 3. Then we move into section B, which is this section here, B1, 2, 3, and the bottom triangle corner here, C1, 2, and 3. Now what you need to do with those pieces then is to cut them apart. So put this away. You need to cut them apart right on the lines you've drawn. Now what you need to do is keep in mind with this whole process is that your star does not have seam allowances at this point included in the shapes. And we're going to add them in just a moment when we get to placing those onto the fabric. And as I cut this apart, you'll realize real quick why we put them into an order, why we labeled them. Because once you get the puzzle apart, it makes it a little difficult to remember how to put the puzzle back together. So that's why diagrams are an important thing. My kids used to knock puzzles apart, and we finally got to the point where we marked the back sides of all of the puzzles. So when 5 puzzles were dumped out, one puzzle was 1, one was 2, one was 3. So we could divide all the pieces and figure out which pieces went to which puzzle. So once we get done, now we have pieces like this. Move things out of the way. We're going to go to the iron, and we're going to layer 2 fabrics right side up. And we're going to put those near the ironing board so we can reach. And we need to arrange the pieces. So I have the 3 pieces that were part of A. We're going to place along the top edge like this in somewhat of a row. We need to leave about 1/2 inch space between our pieces. And if you need a little cheat tool, what you can use is the Fons & Porter 1/2 1/4 ruler, because we know that that's a 1/2 inch. So you need to leave at least that much space between your pieces. And before I iron those into place, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put B into place. Keep in mind that 1/2 inch or about a finger's width in between. Then I need the 3 pieces that go into C. It gets to be a little bit of a jostling thing to get everybody on the board here. But once you have them all in place, this is why you want to arrange them either on the ironing board or very near it where you can iron, because you don't want to move it at this point. The waxy side of the freezer paper will adhere to the fabric. So we're just going to press them into place. And that way you can actually pick up your squares. Now the size of this square is denoted in the pattern, so depending on what size your star needs to be in the end, we'll give you that size. And then we're going to cool that just slightly. We don't want to put hot fabric onto the cutting mat and let it cool just a bit. There we go. Now what we need to do is cut these pieces apart. But we do need to keep in mind we need a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the pieces on the interior. Now why I'm saying the interior is because when you get to these outside edges, you want to leave a 1/2 inch. And why do I say that? Because I did my demo wrong the first time I was making the blocks for here, so learn from my mistake. We're going to start here on an outside edge. We're going to leave a 1/2 inch along this outer C2 portion. I'm going to just cut that out and away. And then I'm going to rotate this a little bit just so I can get to it so you can see what I'm doing. I'm leaving a 1/4 inch along this portion of C. Just overcut a little ways. A 1/4 inch here. And then we're down to this bottom, and that's the outside corner. So again, I need to leave 1/2 inch. Something you really need to be able to concentrate on. You don't want to get too distracted when you're working on this. So that is piece C2. And then I would just keep going, cutting, remember, the 1/4 inch around each of the pieces. Whenever I get to an outside edge, remember to leave a 1/2 inch. If you need a reminder for that, before you cut your star all apart, this might be the trick that helps you remember that when you get to an outside edge, put an arrow towards that outside edge so that once you cut it apart, you'll remember that's an outside edge or a corner that I need to make sure I leave a 1/2 inch. Because, like I said, it's easy to do. I cut mine away and then it was a little fussy trying to get it trimmed down later. So 1/2 inch on the outside, 1/4 inch on the inside of all your pieces. Now I have some that are already cut apart. Bear with me here. Get everything out. Get my pieces. Oops, I dropped one. Now we kind of need to reconstitute everything. And I'm going to put it towards me, sorry, but so that way I can see what I'm doing. And remember, A is at the top, B is in the center, C is at the bottom. Okay, now these are background pieces. Now you had them stacked, so that means that you needed to rearrange. As you were cutting, where's that sample one I cut? Here. Because we cut through 2 layers at once, there's my opposite. So what you need to do is just go in and rearrange. So you keep the center star all in blue, move the cream to the top. That means that underneath you'll have the opposite version, like they're inside out. And once you do that, you'll understand what I mean. Simply as if this piece, I got to find where it goes, was here on the top because we had blue everywhere showing. So all I did was take the pieces on the outside edge and just rearrange them, moving them to the top. Now we need to figure out how to construct this. And it's, again, by the alphabet, A, B, C. So I'm going to come in. I can take my freezer paper away from this shape. I can reuse this now. It still has enough tackiness to the back. We're going to construct A by joining here and then here. And I have some already assembled. So here is the top. Here's the opposite version of it. You can see my seam allowances. I press toward the outer edge, 1/4 inch seam. It's okay if they aren't perfect aligned and they may be off here just a little bit. We're going to go back and straighten that line at the very end. This is portion B. So B1 and 2 go together first. That's why they're numbered in this order. 1 and 2, just in number order. Then you join 3. So 1 to 2, and then add number 3. I'll take those away underneath there. It helps a little bit if it's not so messy. So then we need to do piece C. So C1 to 2, and then add 3. That one's not quite as critical, but there we go. And because these lines get a little messy, I went in with my ruler and I straightened that line. It's going to be off a little. Go from the furthest out points that you possibly can to get a straight line. Because when you join these, if they're uneven, you're not going to know where to sew. Straighten it, and don't worry. Remember that 1/2 inch we left on the outside? That's for sizing the block down when you're done. So you can easily join these together and then follow instructions. It'll tell you to trim your block to a nice size when you're finished. Making stars is not so bad. If you'd like to see more of our Sew Easy tutorials, please visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.